everyone. Welcome to this Waterstones virtual school event with the author Gill Lewis, who is talking about her new book, Moonflight, which is our children's book of the month at the moment. This is Gill's latest book, and it follows Tilbury the rat and his sister Nimblequick as they set out to return a priceless diamond to its rightful owner. Gill will be discussing this book, where her ideas come from and how she creates her animal characters. At the end, we'll have a little question and answer session. Some of you have pre-submitted questions, which I've got here, but feel free to please pop your questions in the Q&A function on the Zoom call, and we'll try and get to as many as we can at the end of the session. We'd love to see any photos or videos you want to share from this event. So if you take any, please share them online with us using the hashtag Waterstones Virtual School Event and at Waterstones Kids, so we can see all of you enjoying this lovely, lovely talk. If you want to revisit this session, it will be recorded and a link will be sent to you tomorrow in case there are any problems or you want to go back and hear something extra special. Now, without further ado, I will hand you over to the lovely Gill Lewis.
Hello everybody. It is absolutely brilliant to be here. Thank you for inviting me here. Now, today in this session, I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about the brilliance of books. I want to talk about Moonflight, my new book, and how I came to write it and how I came to be an author. And I'm going to be teaching you a sea shanty as well. So get ready with your vocal cords a little bit later on. So books, the brilliance of books. Just how fantastic are they? It's been World Book Day this month, it's been World Book Week, and it's been World Book Month in March. It's a great time for books. So what books have you read that have really inspired you this month? Well, I'm going to share two books that I've loved this month. and I'm going to have to show you a picture of one of them, which is Evil Emperor Penguin by Laura Ellen Anderson. Now I'm showing you this picture because my daughter has actually taken this book and she's reading it. She's taken it back to university because she loves Evil Emperor Penguin as much as I do. That book's made me laugh. I've read Kieran Millwood Hargrave's Lila and the Blue Fox, and that's a beautiful book, and it's made me cry. So books make us laugh, they make us cry, they take us into the past, they take us into the future, they take us across the world and into different galaxies, or sometimes they show us the world just outside our own doorstep and they make us think about our own lives too. So books are fantastic. And I've been a published author now for about 12 years. I'm just going to share my screen so I can show you some of the covers of my book. Just bear with me a little bit. I think there now. So these are some of the covers of some of the books that I've written. And I think you can agree there's a sort of similar theme that runs through some of my books. They're about animals. They're all about animals. And as a child, I was absolutely obsessed by animals. This is me when I was about a year old. I'd crawled across the gravel and found this little hedgehog here, and I was absolutely fascinated. When I was picked up, I cried my eyes out because I wanted to keep stroking this little hedgehog. So as I grew up, I loved animals. I loved stories too. I loved thinking about stories. I loved drawing stories. I loved drawing cartoons of stories. But I also got lost in some of my daydreams. I wonder how many of you have been accused of being a bit of a daydreamer. Well, this is a very typical school report that I had. Gillian seems in a daydream most of the time. She often doesn't listen to instructions, and as a consequence, her work suffers. Now, I wonder how many of you might have similar reports to that. But I think daydreaming is really important, and I still have to daydream now to think up my stories, where I just sit and I just perhaps stare out the window and these stories and wonderful things are going on inside my head. So, and whether or not you're a scientist, you still need time to daydream. So daydreaming is really important. But as a child, I struggled with reading and writing. My handwriting was messy because I'm left-handed. My spelling wasn't very good. And I thought I wouldn't be allowed to be an author. Now, of course, now I know that writing stories is all about the ideas, the handwriting, the spelling, the grammar, that all comes later, and that's fine. But if you've got lots of ideas, get them down. And one of the things I still do now is I draw lots of my characters, I storyboard my ideas, because if somebody gave me a blank piece of paper and told me to write a story, I'd feel really stuck. I have to start with images and pictures before I can find those words that I need to use to tell the story. So if you're like me, try that too. So I didn't go into becoming a writer straight away. I followed my love of animals and I became a vet. So this is me with my lovely big dog, Murphy. And I loved being a vet because I got to meet so many animals, but I got to meet lots of really interesting people as well. People's pet owners. I got to meet farmers and their animals. And I got to meet people who work for animal conservation and look after wild animals in wild places. And all these stories fascinated me. And so it was only really when I was a bit older, when I had children of my own, that I went back to the library and we got lots of books out, that I remembered how magical books are. I'd forgotten how magical books were. And I also started making up stories for my children. They made up stories for me. And there's a real lovely moment when you're sharing a story and going on an adventure together. And that's when I got back into writing. And when people talk about, well, what do you write about? I think you've got to write about things that you're really interested in and things that you love. And so the first stories that I wrote, this was my first book that was ever published, was Skyhawk. And it's about this amazing bird called an osprey and how this osprey connects children in Scotland and in Northwest Africa in the Gambia through its migration, because I was so fascinated by animals. But in many of my stories, children are at the heart of the story, and the children make the big changes we need to see. And another story, which is White Dolphin, which is about dolphins, and there's a girl who's searching for her missing mother, and she's desperately trying to find where her mother is, but she's also trying to save the bay in her hometown from very damaging fishing practices where they dredge big dredges all along the seabed. So you can see that many of my stories have a wild animal in a wild place. And I don't give a voice to the animal. The animal doesn't speak like a human. My animals stay very much as animals, and it's the humans who tell the story. So in my latest book, Moonflight, it's actually very different. It's about rats, rats that talk, rats that wear clothes, rats that have really sort of complicated ceremonies and rituals. And I had great fun writing the story because it was written in lockdown. And do you remember when in lockdown, when we weren't allowed out of the house, only out for half an hour a day? And I remember feeling trapped. I remember thinking I wanted to get outside. I wanted to go on an adventure. And of course, if you can't go on an adventure in the outside world, then you want to go on an adventure in the imagination. And that's where books can take you. And also when you're a writer, that's where your words can take you into this fabulous story of imagination. And that's where I went with Tilbury. And you can see the little rat in the green coat is Tilbury. He's the main character. And I've got made a little Tilbury here. You can see him there. And he's with his sister Nimblequick on the cover. She's the one wearing the cream top and the reddish coloured trousers. Now, it's a story about Tilbury and his sister and all the dockland rats that live alongside the Thames in London. Now, this story, before I tell you about the story, I want to tell you what the story was inspired by, because the story about Nimblequick and Tilbury is about a cursed and stolen diamond. And would you believe me if I said the story was based on a real cursed and stolen diamond? Well, the next slide will show you that this is a true story it's based on a true story about the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This is a priceless diamond that sits in the crown jewels in the Tower of London. And it has a curse on it. A curse so powerful, or believed to be so powerful, that no male member of the royal family, no man or boy in the royal family will dare to wear this diamond. Now, this diamond was acquired by Queen Victoria, and she acquired it through deception, really, from a Maharaja, a 10-year-old Maharaja, Gill Singh, way back in the 1800s. But Gill Singh's family didn't hold it for all that time, because this diamond has been taken and has lots of bloodshed behind it. People have taken it from one family to another, from one country to another. And when I was looking at this diamond, I was thinking, well, who actually owns this diamond? Because lots of countries claim it as their own. Britain says it belongs to Britain. India would like it back. Pakistan would like it back. Afghanistan and Iran all say it belongs to them. And it made me think, what's the truth behind these stolen diamonds? Who was the first person to pick it up from the mine, dig it from a mine, or dig it from the sand where it was found? And then I was thinking about a curse. I don't really believe in curses, but it's obviously of such a strong feeling that no male member of the royal family will wear this diamond, that people believe there's a curse around it. And I think a curse are the stories that are wrapped around this diamond, so many different stories that are told about this diamond, that the truth is hidden. And I think to take away the layers of the stories and find the truth will lift the curse. Now, this was the basis really for the story of Moonflight, about rats where there is a stolen and cursed diamond. But before I tell you about the cursed diamond in Moonflight, I'll introduce you to some of the characters. So the main character in Moonflight is little Tilbury. You can see him in the picture, and I'm holding up here. He is the youngest rat of Mr. and Mrs. Tilbury Twitch Whiskers. And here you can see them with some of their children. Now, little Tilbury has 42 brothers and sisters, and they all live in the attic rooms in Chandlery Docks, and in the Chandlery at Tilbury Docks. Now, Tilbury Docks is right on the edge of the Thames, where the Thames meets the sea. And Tilbury lives up here in the attic rooms of the Chandlery with all his brothers and sisters, and they live in the saggy old sofa you can see there. Now, his Aunt Swinny and Uncle Tubbs live in the posh doll's house with their children. At the back, you can see Uncle Jack, who lives in a trunk full of books. And then you can see a wardrobe a little bit further back where Lily May lives with all her children as well. So they live in this big rambling family in the Docklands. And Tilbury is the 7th born rat of the 7th born litter of Mr. and Mrs. Tilbury Twitch Whiskers. And there's a saying that the 7th born rat of the 7th born litter is a rat in want of adventure. But it's also a saying that a rat in want of adventure does not live very long in the world. So Mrs. Twitch Whiskers doesn't allow Tilbury to go outside of the Chandlery. She says, you can't go, you have to stay here, you have to stay safe. And so Tilbury has very happy times growing up in the Chandlery, but he's got a very inventive mind. And he and his sister Nimblequick like to go down to the basement in the Chandlery, where he tries out lots of his inventions. Now, there was a rat 200 years ago called the Great Bartholomew, who created a flying machine, which you can see in one of the pictures here in the Great Bartholomew. But the plans to the flying machine were lost. And Tilbury and his sister Nimblequick really want to try to make a new flying machine. And they spend hours in the Chandlery with Tilbury trying to catapult his sister in a sort of wingsuit up into the air. They want to learn how to fly. But Tilbury doesn't want to have a go at flying because he's so scared. His mother's made him quite scared of going outside, that little Tilbury is scared of his own shadow. But a bigger shadow looms over all the Dockland rats in the form of a curse, a cursed black diamond. And this black diamond is held within a golden cage, within another golden cage. And this diamond was stolen from the far shores 200 years ago by the Great Bartholomew, the rat that made that flying machine. And when he brought it back 200 years ago, only then he realized there was this terrible, terrible curse that set rat against rat, a curse so terrible that it turned families against themselves and it tore love apart. And when he realized how terrible this curse was, he said he was going to put it inside a cage with intricate locks that no rat would be able to open. But he said there would one day come one rat of such cleverness and ingenuity, and a rat of such bravery, that they would be able to undo all the intricate locks, undo the cage, and take that black diamond for itself. And ever since, in the last 200 years, there's been a special ceremony once a month where, when rats reach a year of age, they go down underneath the wharf at Tilbury Docks and wait for the low tide and wait for this cage to be revealed. And they try to see if they're the one who can open the cage. And they also have to dare to look into the surface of the cut diamond, because it's said that if you look into the cursed diamond, you will see the darkness in your soul and you will see your true self. So I'm going to read a little bit from Tilbury, where Tilbury is watching the year-old rats go and try to unlock the gilded cage. And the gilded cage is guarded by the keepers, the elders, and the elders are older rats that live in the attic rooms in the Tower of London. I'll just show you a little picture. These are all the elders there, and they're the ones who guard the gilded cage and the diamond. But there's one keeper in particular who chants the poem to every young rat. The keeper paced around the gilded cage, and when the keeper spoke, Tilbury was surprised to hear it had the voice of a she-rat, soft but brittle with age. She began to chant, and the words that spilled from her seemed to echo and chase each other like flame-thrown shadows around the walls. They were ancient words, passed from keeper to keeper, words that carried the fate of every Dockland rat within their meaning. This cursed night holds both evil and a prophecy. Its darkness is ever calling to our enemies, a rising tide of danger and adversity. For there will come a time when we decide our destiny, a time to choose between greed and our integrity. There will come forth a rat of Bartholomew's ingenuity to unlock the gilded cage and release us from this legacy and return the cursed night far across the 7 seas to the rightful owners of this rare piece of jewellery, a journey fit only for a warrior of great bravery, a warrior to find a truth we cannot see. To this one I will reveal the secrets of the prophecy. Only this one and one alone can truly set us free. And in the deathly silence that followed, the keeper slowly looked all around the young rats, pointing at them with the end of her staff. And I ask each one of you, who dares try to open the gilded cage? For this diamond will try to possess you and find the darkness in your soul. I ask again, who will dare look into the cursed night? So many of these rats see if they can open the gilded cage, but no rat has been able to open it until now. But of course, it requires a warrior of great bravery to be able to unlock this diamond and take it back to its rightful owners. Is Tilbury the one? Because there are lots of people who want this diamond. It creates such power and greed that everybody wants this diamond for their own. And we've got some rather unscrupulous characters like this character here with his big tail spike. And Tilbury doesn't know who he can trust. He has to look inside and think, who in the world around him can he trust to help him? And of course, he's a very scared little rat, scared of his own shadow. He doesn't want to leave his home of Tilbury Docks, but he has to make a very, very difficult decision. And there comes a time when he has to leave home. He has to leave the safety of his family and the attic rooms in Tilbury Docks behind, because the fate of ratkind, of all the Dockland rats along the Docklands, rests on him. As you can see, when he leaves home, there are some pretty unscrupulous characters, some mean characters he comes across. And on the ship, we can see these rather mean-looking ship rats. And ship rats never trust a ship rat. They'll steal the socks off your feet and throw you to the sharks. You've got to be very careful. So I'm going to read one more section from where Tilbury has to leave the docks for the very first time. And it's a scary time for him. He doesn't know what's going to happen. Tilbury, and we can see little Tilbury there. You can see just him to the left of the center of the screen, the little rat looking back at some of the other adult rats, and we can see the other ship rats coming down towards him. Tilbury watched as the ship pulled away from the harbour wall, leaving a gulf of foaming froth between him and the land. He searched the crowd for Nimblequick, hoping she'd changed her mind to come and wave goodbye. He couldn't see her and looked up to the glass window of the attic rooms. He'd often looked out of that window on the world, watching Nimblequick leave to go foraging or to market. Now he was the one leaving. He waved and waved, hoping she would see him. Maybe she was waving back. But the rising sun reflected in the windows, and he couldn't see her at all. Tilbury tried not to cry, holding back gulping sobs that wanted to come. He waved and waved until he could no longer see Ma and Pa. Then he stood with the sea wind blowing in his face and tears streaming down his cheeks. "Chin up," said Ma Fair with a smile. She inhaled deeply. "Do you smell that?" Tilbury took a deep breath and sniffed. "I can't smell anything, only the salt of the sea." "Then breathe in more deeply," said Ma Fair. "Fill your lungs with it." "What can you smell?" asked Tilbury. Ma Fair took another deep sniff and smiled. "That, Master Tilbury, is the smell of adventure." Tilbury watched the land slip away, further and further and further, until all around was only sea. Thoughts buzzed inside his head. How big is the sea, and how deep? And how do we know where we're going? And how do we find our way back? And will we ever come back at all? He glanced at Marfair and Obsidian, but they were both lost deep in their own thoughts, staring at the wide blue horizon that lay ahead of them. This was not the moment for questions. But an answering call came from somewhere above Tilbury's head. It was a voice, singing. And Tilbury looked up, and there on the deck above him stood a ship rat. And soon other ship rats lined up, joining in with the singing. So Tilbury is subjected to some rather bad sea shanties by these ship rats. And I want to teach you a sea shanty right now. So what we're going to do is we'll have a little warm up, then I will teach you the chorus. And so you can sing along, and then I'll sing the verse and you can sing the chorus. But first of all, let me here's the ship rats. So these are some of the ship rats that you're going to see if you can sing to join the crew. So when I sing, I won't be able to hear you, but if you sing back after me, so we'll do a little bit of a warm up. So if you copy me, so I'll go squeak, 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 squeak. Squeak, 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 squeak. Squeak, 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 squeak. Fantastic. Have you got some of your vocal cords warmed up? So we're going to do the chorus of the shanty together. So I'll sing one line at a time, and then if you sing it back to me, okay? So here we go. Hey ho, and off we go. On the rolling waves, on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. Fantastic. Let's do that one more time. We're singing one line at a time. Hey ho, and off we go. On the rolling waves, on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. Okay, we'll try that all together and then we'll sing the songs. We'll just do the chorus all together now. So ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey, ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey, ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. Excellent. You think you've got it? That is brilliant. So now I'm going to put on my rat mask to really fit the part and see if you can join the sea shanty crew too. So I will sing, and if you feel like joining in with the song, if you think you pick up the tune, then do. So let's start. There once was a rat that put to sea. The name of the rat was Tilbury. He left on a quest to set rats free, this rat named Tilbury. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. Fare thee well to the land, ho, one last kiss to your family. You'll not be back for a long time yet if you ever come back at all. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. Landlubber, 'tis best not eat when the sea's so rough and restless. 'Tis a waste of good fine food to say hello again to your breakfast. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a ship rat's life for me. 'Twill take 3 days of pitch and toss, 3 days of retch and spew. Then when you find your sea legs, you'll become a shiprat too. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a shiprat's life for me. Give me wine and give me cheese, give me a hammock I can call my own, a kick of spray and a following wind, and I call this ship my home. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a shiprat's life for me. Fare thee well to my old life. Come wind, fill these sails and blow. Oh ship, ride these tempests, or the bottom of the sea we go. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a shiprat's life for me. One more time. Hey ho, and off we go on the rolling waves on the fathomless sea. Hey ho, and off we go. It's a shiprat's life for me. Absolutely fantastic. And if you want to share some of your videos of singing the ship rats, then please do. It would be absolutely great fun. So I'm just going to stop share now. So it's been a real pleasure talking about Moonflight. Tilbury obviously goes off on some incredible adventures after his sea shanties to see if he can return to the diamond and find the rightful owners. But will he be able to do it? And will he have the courage to look into the cut surface of the cursed night? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill. My voice has gone a little hoarse from how loudly I was singing along with those sea shanties. I really hope some schools manage to take some videos, because I would love to do that. Thank you for such a lovely and inspiring talk, telling us all about wonderful Tilbury. I'm going to read some questions now that have been pre-submitted. Teachers, if you would like to submit any questions as we're going along, please use the question and answer function, and we'll try and get to them. Or the chat box as well is also fine. So firstly, we have a lovely question from St Stephen's Primary in Bolton, who ask, how do you start a story? The children find that the hardest part.
I think many authors find starting the story the hardest part. And quite often what authors will do is will write a story, and I always know that I will come back and start the beginning somewhere else, because what everyone tends to do is tends to put too much of the backstory or information in that first chapter. And actually, in a way, that's quite boring to read. People often want to get into a hook, be drawn into the action. So I would say, if you've got a story, write it, but then think, actually, I'm going to go back and I'm going to begin it at a really exciting bit, because you don't have to explain why something's happened straight away. So you could say, well, you could say, you know, somebody fell from space onto the floor. You don't have to explain who they were or where they were before that. So start on a really exciting action bit, but don't worry about the beginning at the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. That's very good advice. And I love this question from the Otley Primary School in Ipswich, who says, in your book, there is an unlikely hero in Tilbury. Do you know about any other unlikely heroes from history or stories? If so, who is your favourite and why?
Oh, I think there's so many unlikely heroes. One that I really love, and one of my favourite books of all time, is a book by Kate de Camillo called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And I particularly like the story because it's about Edward Tulane, who's this China hare. And he's rather unlikable at first, in fact. He's very vain, he's very selfish. He doesn't think other people sort of deserve his attention. And it's about his journey, about his awareness and growing to love himself and to love others. And I think that's such a beautiful story. That's my favourite, I think.
Oh, lovely. We've got a nice question from the George Fenton Endowed School in Solihull, who say, we have been reading White Dolphin and thinking about the theme of conservation and how about how the theme of conservation and relationships intertwine. What are the linking themes within your new story?
That's interesting, because as you say, the majority of the books I've written have this deep theme of conservation, and it's about the young people making the changes we need to see. And I think we're seeing that in the world now. It's often changes instigated by young people, which is really inspiring. So Moonflight is very different. It doesn't have a conservation theme, but I think it explores some of the concepts of colonialism when Britain went and colonized, invaded other countries and looted lots of resources and gemstones. So it's a question of looking back historically at colonization. But I think we've got to remember that this is still happening now in different forms and formats. And in fact, in one of my stories, Gorilla Dawn, it's about how gorillas and their wild habitats, their forests, are being destroyed because of mining for coltan, a mineral that's used in all our mobile phones. And so I think it's, you know, we're trying to look at, actually, yes, we need some of these resources, but how do we use them with protecting the environment as well? So I think there are lots of interconnecting themes in a lot of my books that aren't necessarily obvious, but I think they're threaded through with invisible threads, really.
Lovely. A question from the North Shore Academy in Stockton-on-Tees. They ask, how do you make sure your storylines aren't predictable?
Oh, that's a good question, because you hope they're not predictable. And I think certainly with Moonflight, what was great about Moonflight, a lot of my stories, my conservation stories, I have to do lots of research. So I know all about the animal, about the habitat. So I know quite a lot of what's going to happen, although I don't plan it out, but I still know a lot of the background. But with Moonflight, I just started writing it. It's the first book that I just started writing and just went on this just really exciting journey that I didn't know what was going to happen next. And that's quite fun, writing a story where you literally get to a door and you don't know what's going to be the other side. You open it and suddenly, I don't know, sometimes I don't know how the imagination works, because all these ideas pour through and then you sort of select one. But it's that excitement of not knowing where a story's going. So keep your stories fresh and don't plan too much, experiment. So you might like writing like that.
Yeah, that's true. I think the best ideas come when you're not like looking at them. They just bounce into your head, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm going to go into some of the chat questions. So Freya Horson, who is a home educator, asks, what was it like when you were in Africa as a vet, and what animals did you look after?
So I worked with some other vets in Africa, and a lot was looking after domestic cattle. And so in Africa, there's a lot, because you've got a lot of ticks, these little sort of arachnids, fly-like creatures which transmit disease between cattle. There's a lot of, you're treating a lot of tick-borne diseases that but we did go out with the vets that I was working with. They did work with wild animals as well. So we went out to vaccinate wild animals against rabies. So things like African wild dogs, they didn't spread rabies amongst each other because they're quite endangered. And they did tracking of elephants as well. So it was fascinating seeing the different mix in Africa between wild animals and also really big domestic animals as well. And yeah, just so many different, I mean, I love the wild animals, seeing puff adders in the use of walking along. So there's this snake, puff adders, these big snakes that are so well camouflaged, but you just got to make sure you don't stand on them because they're so well camouflaged.
Amazing. We've got quite a few questions asking how long it took you to write either Moonflight or any of your books.
Most of my books usually take about 9 to 10 months to write, and a lot of them, the other books, the research takes about 3 months. So Moonflight was different because I didn't do any research. I just went where the story took me. But then it ended up being about 150,000 words long. Now, to put it in context, most books, children's books, are about 50,000 words. So I had to lose about 100,000 words and reduce this big story into one which was a bit more manageable to read. So that was quite tricky, taking out parts of the story and knowing which parts to leave in as well.
I can imagine that would have been really hard.
I have a very good editor who helps me see how to manage this big overwritten manuscript into a much sharper, neater story. So editing and rewriting your stories is really important, to really find the story and shape it up. That's one of the biggest things which will improve a story.
Incredible. Joanne McLaughlin asks, what made you change the way you write about animals in Moonflight compared to your other books?
That's a hard one because I love writing books about real animals and conservation. And I think it was just being in lockdown, just feeling absolutely trapped. I couldn't go out. I could go out for half an hour each day to walk through the fields or along footpaths. So I felt really trapped. And I think that was the biggest difference. I just had to go on an adventure in my mind, somewhere very different from the here and now at that time when we were trapped in lockdown.
A very nice escape on a pirate ship.
And I think that's why books were so lovely in lockdown as well. The fact that you could just switch off screens and just curl up on a bed or in the sofa just with a book, and just the moment you open a book, you kind of fall into this different world and meet new characters. And that's something truly magical about being able to go on adventures like that, I think.
Absolutely. We've got a few questions about the sea shanty. So Long Sutton Primary would like to know how you made up the song.
Well, now I've moved to West Wales in the last 14 months and I've joined a group of sea shanty singers. So we meet up every fortnight and sing sea shanties, and in the summer we go down on the beach and sing sea shanties, and we have a cup of coffee and it's very nice. So I used the tune behind the Wellerman sea shanty, which is very famous as a sea shanty, and I wanted to add my own words if ship rats had written their own sea shanty, and so I rewrote some of the words, but I used that song as a structure to write a new shanty, really.
Lovely. That sea shanties have such a nice rhythm, don't they? It's very nice when a group of people are singing it. It's very satisfying, I think. We've also got quite a few questions asking what your favourite book to write was, if you have one.
It's really hard. I don't have a favourite book that I've written because they've all really important to me. I suppose I've got a few books here. I'm just trying to see if I can find the one that I'm looking for. So I write an awful lot about conservation and about conservation in this country as well, because I think if you've seen the Wild Isles programme by David Attenborough, it's showing just the extraordinary wildlife within Britain, but it also shows that we are one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. And I find that shocking. And I've written 2 books about our uplands, our mountainous areas in Britain. One's called Sky Dancer and another is called Eagle Warrior. And as David Attenborough pointed out in the last series, that our big eagles, and this book's about a bird called a hen harrier, which is a bird of prey, a beautiful bird of prey. and they're being killed regularly, poisoned, shot and trapped on our uplands by people who want to protect the sort of a bird called a grouse. Now up on our highlands, people like to go up onto the highlands and to shoot grouse, and they produce lots and lots of grouse so that people can do the sport of grouse shooting. But because birds of prey like to eat grouse, birds of prey are illegally killed in vast numbers, such that it doesn't allow their recovery of these birds. And grouse shooting is also very bad because lots of heather's grown. So if you've gone up to any of the hills in Scotland or on the uplands in England, you'll see lots and lots of purple heather. Well, that's not natural, actually. Our uplands really need to be mixed habitats, lots of beautiful woodland. We need some heath, some bog areas. We need mixed habitats to really allow wildlife to come and thrive and to build these rich wild habitats. And so both Sky Dancer and Eagle Warrior are about changing our landscapes. They're about an animal, a bird, a heron harrier and an eagle, but they're about more than that. They're about changing our mindset and changing whole landscapes to provide more areas for wildlife and more wildlife too. And that also brings me on, I'm just going to see, I don't know whether we can have a little bit of a, well, I won't put it into the chat because this is another really important animal that's making a comeback. Just have a little think amongst yourselves and have a little guess if any of you know what skull this animal belongs to. It's sort of like the size of a cat, it's a skull, but it's got these big cutting teeth at the front. This animal belongs to a beaver. And beavers once were extinct in Britain, but they're making a huge comeback to Britain. They're being reintroduced. They're really important because they're landscape engineers. They change landscapes. They cut down trees. The trees dam back rivers. So we get these wetlands, but wetlands created, which is great for frogs, for toads, for lots of water birds, for lots of tree life. It's great for fish because fish can swim upstream and breed in the sort of stiller waters around where the beavers are creating these areas. And one of my books, Song of the River, is all about bringing beavers back into the landscapes and creating change for beavers and people as well.
Oh, well, I think that's a lovely note to end on. Long live the beaver. Thank you so much again, Gill, for such an informative chat and a very musical one as well. Thank you to all of the schools who tuned in and for all of your incredible questions. Just a reminder, if you want to share any photos or videos, the hashtag is Waterstones Virtual School Event, and you can share it with us using @WaterstonesKids, and with Gill Lewis as well. What's your is it @Gill Lewis is your
on Twitter, you mean? On
yeah,
it's @Gill _Lewis.
Perfect.
2 underscores, not one. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much again, everyone. And if you need to revisit this session at all, a link will be emailed to you tomorrow. Perfect.
Oh, thank you. And thank you very much for me.
Bye.